Hello there and welcome. In this video, we are taking a look at the 10 bosses of Chapter 1 for Black Myth Wukong, while giving some advice on how to beat them a little bit easier. As such, there will be spoilers. I will also be making more in-depth guides for some of these bosses in the future, so I would appreciate it if you would like the video, and subscribe for more if you're interested in the game. Now, the first boss we run into is Bulgard, who is a fairly simple boss with very easy mechanics. He has a big halberd, he makes very big L's, easy to kind of expect, what to expect. He combos a maximum of 3 times, and generally after the 3rd time you have a very big opening to wail on him. Halfway through the fight, you'll also be given the immobilize spell, making it even more trivial, but you should have an easy time beating him up. For the second boss, we're going to go for Guanxi, who is a wolf wielding a flaming double-bladed staff. Guanxi will use fast, devastating combos, but most of his attacks are somewhat easy to read, judging by his stance before attacking. As such, getting acquainted with these stances are going to be the key to making this fight a little bit easier. As an example, some of his easy to dodge attacks are when he holds his staff horizontally behind him. He is going to throw it at you, and it will return to him, meaning that you should get out of the way. Vertically to his left, your right, he's going to run up to you and do a flowing flurry of attacks. Generally, if you dodge towards him and keep on dodging that direction, most of those attacks are going to miss. It can be a little bit difficult to dodge if you end up in the middle of it though, so be very, very careful with that one. If he holds it vertically on his right, your left, he is going to be doing a double dash attack that can be quite devastating. So make sure that you're ready for that and do a dodge the first and dodge the second. Now, one of his biggest damage opportunities is when he does a 4-attack poker stick combo. That's basically the best way to describe it. He's going to be smashing his staff in the ground 4 times, finishing off with a pretty big, obvious move. And after that, you have a lot of free damage where you can actually wail him. Making use of your immobilize spell is going to make this fight a lot easier, as fighting from a distance and focusing on dodging is going to allow you to have it recharge a few times, making it an efficient, if somewhat, careful strategy. Once you beat him, you will want to ding the bell behind him, as this is one of the 3 bells needed to get access to Chapter 1's secret boss. Our third boss is going to be the Wandering Light. He's a boss with several hard-hitting attacks and decent defense, making him a bit of a challenge early on. You can run into him before you do Guanxi, but since Guanxi gives us a transformation spell, I really recommend getting Guanxi first, as it's going to make this fight a lot easier. The Wandering White's scariest attack is going to be his beam attack, where he charges his hands and launches a beam at you. And as long as you dodge this, you have a pretty decent window to do some damage. He also has a ground pound that spreads out in 3 stages, also dealing massive damage, so look out for that. And he also has 2 very fast attacks, one where he runs up and will try and clap you with between his hands, and one where he runs up and straight up kicks you. But besides these 2, most of his attacks are pretty well telegraphed and should be easy to deal with. Since most of his ability is slow, make sure you keep your patience and look for the damage windows when they appear after his combos to get some easy and safe damage. And also make sure you take use of your immobilize spell and your new transformation to beat him up in relative safety. The fourth boss of Chapter 1 is Sling Truy, who is a big and scary wolf, but is probably one of the easier bosses on the level of Bulgard. He has a couple of very damaging moves, but those are generally well telegraphed, and you should not have a huge problem dodging these. The particular scary one is the one where he goes on the roof at 2/3 and 1/3 of HP, but as long as you keep on the move and just dodge as he starts jumping off, it's going to be very, very easy to dodge, and you should have no problem dealing with him. Good use of your immobilize and your transformation is going to make this fight a cakewalk. The only thing to look out for is that he will sometimes try and slide across the ground and bite you. But again, Sling Truy is really, really easy. He has a couple of moves that can be problematic, but since you learn these, this fight is just going to be a cakewalk. The fifth boss is the Frog Bali Gulang, and it is another fairly simple fight. 2 things to look out for in this fight is going to be when the frog turns his back on you and tries to stomp you with his back legs, as well as a tongue combo where the boss literally will spit out the tongue, wave it back and forth, damaging you if you're in the area where it's being waved. And also, this is a very good moment to get behind him and wail on him. The frog is pretty simple though and straightforward. It has those 2 annoying moves, but for the most part, the rest of them are easy to read, and you should have no problem just straight up beating it up. The 6th boss is Guan Mo. Guan Mo can be tricky as he has a teleport that makes him move around the battlefield in a quick and unpredictable manner, but that's also where his unpredictability ends. Most of his attacks are well telegraphed and are fairly easy to dodge once you get used to them. He will teleport on top of you though and try and spit poison, so make sure you dodge before you start wailing on him when he gets close to you. As mentioned, most of the other attacks here are really well telegraphed, so as long as you pay attention and dodge, you should be alright. He does have one fairly dangerous and somewhat difficult to deal with attack, which is when he summons snakes to spit poison. You can cancel this by just immobilizing him. As he starts to summon, he'll do a little dance. You can also kill the snakes, but the easiest way I found to deal with this is just to sprint around in circles at the edge of the arena until they despawn. They despawn after 10-15 seconds, so it's not a huge deal. And generally, as long as you run in circles around the arena, Guan Mo won't be able to hit you either. So while Guan Mo might seem tricky, but it should be fairly manageable once you keep this in mind. And also, after you beat him, you can find the second of the 3 bells next to his arena. The 7th boss is the White-Clad Noble, and this guy can be a hard wall to cross for some. He combines quick movements with somewhat unpredictable combos and big damage, and as such, keeping vigilant and always being ready to dodge is going to be key. One attack that is pretty much free damage is when he tries to just straight up stab you, as you will have a free window after that to wail some damage. Generous use of Immobilize and also your transformation is going to make this fight a lot easier, but there is a very important but here. He is also the first boss that has 2 phases, which means that after you have depleted his first health bar, it's going to be an immediate second fight, and if you fail, you're going to have to start at the beginning. And in his second transformation, he removes his legs, if you will, and gets the snake tail. Becomes a lot faster, a lot more agile, but the same strategy applies. Look for gaps, make generous use of your spells, and he should fall to you. He is especially aware of his stabs as mentioned, as they give you the best window to deal some damage, and in his second phase, those are a lot more targeted to you. He is straight up gonna target you, so you're gonna have to try and be a little bit more precise with your dodge than in the first phase. Now after you beat Noble, head to the left instead of through the temple, or the opening into the cave, and you will find the last bell. Ring it and you'll be teleported to the secret area, where you will be fighting Elder Ginchi, who's going to be our 8th boss. Elder Ginchi is very similar to Wandering White and has a very similar moveset. The difference is that there are undead roaming the area, and these will play a part in some of his new mechanics. The first of this mechanic occurs at half health, where Elder Ginchi will fly up into the sky while undead monks stumble towards him, and if they reach him, he will absorb them and heal. Kill them before they get close, and after a bit this phase will end on its own, no special things happening. At 25%, however, he will make the remaining undead monks charge at you, and as they get close to you, they will explode. So you can run through them to trigger this early, clean up the arena a little bit, and then just, again, wail on him and get that sorted. Aside from these 2 mechanics, though, he plays very similar to Wandering White. He just hits a little bit harder, and once you do beat him, you are given the Fireproof Mantle, which increases your burn resistance, which is going to make the final boss of this chapter a lot easier. The 9th boss is the Blackwind King, who is also the final boss, but in a different form. In this fight, the boss will use devastating wind attacks, so dodging is going to be key. He will also turn into wind, and during this, use audio cues to know when to dodge and to avoid damage. He is invulnerable while in his wind form, and once he is done zooming back and forth, he's going to return to the middle, giving you plenty of time to charge up a heavy attack and hit him for a lot of damage. He also has an ability to heal similar to you by drinking, and as his health gets lower, he will start adding more devastating attacks and combos to his arsenal, so saving your Immobilize and transformation until the second half of this fight can make it a lot easier. Basically, once it gets closer, or rather past 50%, that's when you want to start using your spell and your transformation to, again, just make your life a little bit easier, to do a lot of damage when he is getting more dangerous, if you will. Once you defeat him, he runs away and you will have to chase after him, where we will be fighting him in his final form as the final boss of this chapter. The 10th boss is the final chapter boss, the Blackwind Y, the bear form of our previous encounter. This boss will use his previous wind attacks while also adding devastating fire attack combos as his health gets lower. While big, he is quite agile, so it can actually be a bit of a challenge to hit at times, but play safe, play slow, and you'll be fine. Now, until we hit the half health threshold, his attacks will be very manageable and telegraphed, but once he gets to half health, he starts to unleash both fire and wind attacks, and for his wind attacks, it's going to be pretty similar to the previous phase. Listen to the audio cue, but delayed slightly longer this time before you dodge, as basically if you dodge immediately when you hit the Q, you're going to take damage. Now, once he enters his fire form, his combos are far more damaging, so making good use of our spells at this point is vital. An attack we should particularly be wary of is going to be when he slams both paws into the ground and summons fire spells that's going to pop up from under your feet. And without the mantle, these can be easily deadly. So once he, puts his feet on the ground, look below your character's feet. Is the fire starting to form under there? Make sure you dodge it. Other than that, there isn't really too much to him. And to be perfectly honest, he is going to be quite a harder challenge if you don't have the mantle. That is it for the bosses of the first chapter, and I will be making more videos in the future on bosses from the other chapters, as well as looking closer at some more difficult bosses, basically a video that focuses on one boss only. So if you have a boss you struggle with and want me to take a closer look at, let me know. Also, just a heads up, there is indeed an 11th boss in the first chapter area, but you need access to an item you find in the second chapter to actually fight it, so I'll be covering that in the video of bosses for the second chapter, as, to be perfectly honest, unless you are playing the second chapter, you can't actually get to it. Hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, please like, subscribe, as that will help me out a ton. Thanks for watching, and I hope to see you around next time. As I mentioned, if there's anything you'd like me to look into in this game, make a guide on, let me know, and your idea might be the next video. Thank you very much again. Bye bye.